This video is to show you how to knit a square for the memory blanket that we're working on. We're aiming to knit 1,474 squares with your help, and each of the squares is going to commemorate a person who's died homeless within a year.
So we start off the pattern by casting on 3 stitches. So here's the first and the second and the third. You can cast on however you like, however you usually cast on. There we go. As you can see, I am a fairly inexperienced knitter, so it doesn't matter at all if it's not perfect. And then from now on, we're going to knit every row in knit stitches, which is nice and easy. So here's the second row. We're going to knit all the way. And the same again with the next row. I'm going to knit those 3 stitches again. There we are. And now on the next row, we're ready to start the increases. We're doing a really easy increase called yarn over. So you knit the first stitch as you would normally, and then instead of leaving the yarn back here behind your needle, you bring it to the front, knit just as you would normally through that next stitch, and you'll see that now instead of 2 stitches we have 3. So you just knit that final stitch, and there we go, we've done our first increase and we now have 4 stitches there. So we now repeat that row again, so I'll show you another couple of times. So knit the first stitch, yarn over, and then knit the next 3 stitches. There we go. And you'll see that the blanket square starts to steadily increase. I'll do it one last time. Knit the first stitch, yarn over, knit that next stitch, and to the end. And you'll see the blanket square starts to steadily increase in size.
We have a basic pattern that you can follow, although we're very flexible about what your square ends up looking like, as long as it's 10 centimetres or 4 inches on each of its sides, so that we can join it together with all of the other squares. It doesn't matter either what weight of yarn you use. I'm using a chunky yarn, so that means the square will knit up quite quickly, and you'll see that I'm using 5.5mm needles. But if you want to use a lighter yarn and smaller needles, that's absolutely fine as well.
You can see we're starting to get to the point where we've got our first corner, and I will come back again when we're ready for the decreases. So we're asking that people use acrylic yarn because there may come a point when we want to display this blanket outdoors, and we think it'll be much more durable in particularly rainy weather if we've used acrylics rather than wool. So that would be great if you wouldn't mind. I appreciate some people much prefer knitting with wool, but on this occasion, if you could use an acrylic, that would be really fantastic. And we're also, you'll have noticed, knitting this square in a diamond shape rather than in a square. And the reason for that is because we're going to have so many squares attached together, we don't want the blanket to warp in shape from the weight of all the squares pulling on one another. So now the work is at about 10 centimetres, so I'm just going to measure it quickly to double check. So there we go, 10 centimetres on each edge, or 4 inches, and that's what we want it to be. So now it is time to start the decrease rows. And we actually start those exactly the same as we start the increase rows, with a knit stitch, like that, and then a yarn over, and that's so that we end up with these nice holes all the way along the square, so it looks consistent. But instead of doing one knit stitch next, we now do knit 2 together like this. So we start the decreases there. Then we knit all the way to the last 4 stitches of the work. And then when you've got 4 stitches left on your needle, just knit 2 together again. So instead of knitting 1 stitch, you push your needle through 2 and then knit in exactly the same way as you would with 1. And then you'd knit the last 2 stitches. So really straightforward. There we go, and let's try it again. We then repeat those rows, that row, until there are just 6 stitches remaining. And then we'll do something a little bit different to finish off. So knit stitch, yarn over, knit 2 together, there we go, and then we knit all the way to the last 4 stitches. We've got 4 stitches remaining, so we knit these 2 together, push your right needle through 2 stitches instead of 1, and then knit them, and then knit the final 2 stitches in the row. There we go. And again, knit 1 stitch, yarn over, knit 2 together, and then knit to the final 4 stitches. Last 4 stitches, so knit 2 together, and knit the last 2, and then you just keep decreasing like that until you just have 6 stitches remaining. Okay. Right, so I've got 7 stitches left and we need to get down to 6 stitches before we do the cast off. So we'll do the final decrease row in the normal way. So it's that knit 1 stitch, yarn over, knit these 2 together, and then we're already down to our last 4 stitches, so it's knit 2 together again. Just get my needle through there, a little bit tight. And then we knit those final 2 stitches. Okay. And now we're down to 6 stitches. On the next row, we knit 1 stitch, do that yarn over that we've been doing up to this point, and then we knit 2 stitches together as we have been. Immediately knit the next 2 together, and knit 1 last stitch. And then the final row before we cast off is going to be knit 1 stitch and then knit 2 stitches together twice. So knit 1, knit 2 together, knit 2 together, now we just have these final 3 stitches remaining, so we're going to cast off. So I will get some scissors, leave a bit of a tail, cut my yarn. It's potentially easier to do this with a needle, but we can just get this yarn through each of these stitches. Definitely do with a needle here, so make sure you have one when you're doing yours. And then that last stitch, yarn through it. Pull it together tightly. And there we go, we've got our square, which is 10 centimetres or 4 inches on each side, and that will be perfect for our blanket.